everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rabbi's Daugher podcast. It's been a while. You were in America, and I was in America, but it's good to be back. And today we're going to speak about dating, not just
dating as in shidduchim.
Yeah.
Good.
The whole process of dating, and about the parents in the picture, and the community, and the friends, and the differences between men and women, and everything in between. So the first thing I want to speak to you about is really the differences between the, process of dating, between your times and my times. So you've been around, you've seen the differences, you actually experienced them, like with you and your friends, and then with your kids and your kids' friends and the people that consult with you. What would you say are the core differences between the different generations?
So good. Nice question to open with, Shira. Thank you. And first of all, it's probably worth mentioning to our dedicated viewers and listeners that we waited to do a dating episode until you actually got engaged.
Yeah, I refused to do it before.
Right. You don't want to discuss your own dating while you're still in the process.
Yeah.
But now that you're past it, and Mir Hashem, we have a wedding coming up, so we can go back and reflect, how was this? But okay, let me begin with addressing your question, which is a nice question, meaning I was dating 30 years ago or so, a little bit less. And today, of course, it's my kids and my French children. And how do things look different? And I would say in the space that we're in, like the Charedi space, I think that formally nothing has actually changed. Meaning the formal structure, what is a shidduch? How does it look? How do you frame it? What are you supposed to do? How do you come in and how do you come out on the other side? How do you deal with money issues? How do you deal with the finding out, the birurim, as we call them, the birurim, finding out about the boy and the girl and so on? I think formally, nothing has changed. We haven't declared any shift, any transition. So I don't think there's like a formal change that has been made. But I think that behind the surface of those formal expectations, I think there are very significant differences between what happened in my time and what's going on today. First of all, in terms of expectations, I think when I was going out, the expectation was aligned with the formal structure, with the framework. The framework was parents find out, they give you a green light based on checking their different boxes. Does he or she check the boxes that we're interested in terms of his future plans, in terms of his dedication to Torah and to halacha, in terms of his character traits, more or less, and so on. And there's money that was also involved. Money was involved mainly because the whole structure was based on this premise, on this assumption that the guy is going to be in learning, and therefore we need to talk about money from the beginning, where they're going to have money from. So buying an apartment was very much on the table.
Like the parents buying an apartment for
Yes, parents buying an apartment, making sure that they have somewhere to live, and that somewhere to live was generally framed in terms of buying an apartment and in terms of having the income to be able to live. So what's she going to work as? That's kind of the question. What job does she have? What qualifications? What's she doing? So those were the baseline. And in the mindset of the kids too, the boy and the girl that are going out, that was also what they were thinking about. They were thinking about, how do we start on the right foot? How do we begin life in a way that's going to be able to thrust us forward, to be able to propel us to a good life? Now, that good life certainly includes love and intimacy and closeness and everything else, but that wasn't exactly the focus of the dating process, of the going out. I remember my Rabbi, Rabbi Charedi, I was in his share, and he said very unequivocally, he said, dating is not about being in love. It's not about feeling this emotion. He did say, and I think this was kind of progressive on his part, he said, you have to see that there's a potential for love. This is the kind of girl that you could love in the future. I remember Rabasha really telling me this when I was dating.
That's interesting.
It was interesting. So he said, you have to see a potential for love, but how long does it take to get that? 3 dates, 4 dates, fourth date.
How much was like the average?
I don't know if that was average. We closed after 4 dates, Mommy and I. Am I allowed to reveal that on camera? But we did. And so did many of my friends. It was 4 dates, like 5 dates, 6. Like, what are you doing 6 dates? Stop wasting your time. Either yes or no. So, and I think that kind of drew from this alignment between the system, what are the expectations, what are you supposed to be looking for, and so on, and the kids themselves, the boy and girl that are going out, that there was a good alignment. I think that today, even though the system speaks in a similar language, I think the expectations are very different. I think that today people are dating to feel much more of that emotional connection. People don't just want to speak about the technical details and think about a potential for love somewhere down the line, that they want to actually experience something of that now. I'm not saying being madly in love, but having a real emotional bond. And that takes longer. And therefore, we're seeing more than the 4 dates. We're seeing dating become a longer process, even in the Charedi space, because of that expectation. And moreover, these kinds of investigations that used to be the bread and butter, I think that there's a bit less of that and a bit more of the dating process being a meaningful experience and a significant finding out one with the other, rather than just relying on parents, as things used to be more. Today, the boy and girl need to have more autonomy. They have to feel that they're doing something more significant. That's kind of a shift, because we're absorbing more of that autonomy value system, of that individualism. And I think that's a shift. And I would say also, even in the kind of finding out, for us, it was definitely different. We never spoke about money. Nobody wanted to speak about money. To be honest, we are chutznikim.
You're speaking about your experience with the kids?
Yeah, my experience with our kids. We didn't speak about money up front with anybody. None of our shidduchim had money up front. Now, again, it could be because we're English speakers, and therefore the Anglo community doesn't do that. It's less transactional. In the Israeli space, it's more transactional. What are you giving? You're giving 700,000, 800,000, 500,000. What money are you giving?
I was planning to get to it soon, but if you already brought this up, then why do you think there is this difference? Because I wouldn't say it's just about being more liberal. It's not about money is not an issue and all that matters is if you love each other. It's not about that. What do you think it's about? Having the Israelis speak more about what are you giving, what are we giving, how do we solve this, even before they even date. While I wouldn't say the English-speaking world, just not Israeli people. Is there a word for that in English?
Non-Israelis.
Chutznikim?
Yeah, chutznikim. Non-Israelis.
Okay, so the non-Israelis, they don't see it as something like so a core thing for their relationship. Maybe it's because the guys do go to work more and then they can provide.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I used the word before, which is, it's not my favorite word in terms of relationships, but the word transactional. there's a transaction going on. And in the Israeli space, the shidduch is a little bit more transactional. It's what each side actually gives. And that is expressed in shekels, in monetary terms. And that derives from, first of all, a certain hardship. Israelis have less. Americans, English speakers generally, they have more to rely on also. So there's a kind of underlying expectations. Okay, we're going to help our children. We'll be able to give them, to help them out. There's more residual wealth in the English-speaking, in the American space. And therefore, there's less of a tension of who's giving what, how much are we going to be able to give, not saying it doesn't exist. But there's less of a tension around that than there is in the Israeli space. And the second thing is very much what you said, which is in the Israeli space where the men were not traditionally, it's not that many decades, but this system has been around for a few good decades. And within that system, men are not expected to work, at the very least for a good, I don't know how many years, 10, 15, 20 years. And so how do you manage during that time? And that's how this system developed, that money became such a core and central element in the shidduch process. And I remember doing a podcast. It was a Halacha Headlines podcast. Actually, I didn't host it. It was hosted by David Lichtenstein, who is the host. He's the creator and often the host of Halacha Headlines. He consulted with me about finding people to speak about shidduchim. So I found him a certain shadchanit from Ramat Beit Shemesh, I think. I won't say the name. She became quite the star after she gave this episode because she spoke about some of the horror stories that she knows about these families that have to commit to giving these exorbitant sums of money. And sometimes because you're in Israel, so even the Anglos in Israel, they get sucked into the system. Depends a little bit on who the other side is. But if the kid is deeply entrenched in the Israeli Charedi system, then you get sucked into it. And then you have to promise, I'm going to give whatever it is, 1 million shekel, a lot of money. And she said, some of the horror stories that you experience in this field, she spoke about one guy who had a heart attack during the wedding, during his daughter's wedding, literally. And she said she knew exactly why this was happening, because they were under crazy financial pressure, this terrible burden that weighs on you. And it shouldn't be this way.
That's terrible.
That's one horror story. That's why she made headlines. Literally, I mean, that's a double entendre. The program is called Headlines, but her interview made headlines because of the ripples of her conversation. But that's the drawback of this system where money becomes so central. And I think that today, if we go back to the differences between then and today, I think today it's different because today this money has run out. People used to have a little bit more. There were still reparations from Germany. There were still inheritances from parents that still had wealth, but that's run thin. Today's parents whose children are getting married are themselves avrechim, meaning it's a guy that's in learning. It's a wife who's trying to make ends meet, but it's not simple. Where are they going to get these tremendous amounts of money from? And therefore, money has become a little bit less, I would say, of an emphasis. Yes, parents are still giving.
I think the emphasis went to what does the girl do?
Right. The emphasis went to the job, the occupation that the girl has. How is she going to be able to bring in a decent income, which will enable them both to live and to save money?
I wouldn't say all the people are like that. Not everyone puts the emphasis on things like that.
Right. But also, it's funny. It's not really on the table. But behind the surface, there's also an expectation that the guy's going to work sometime. We don't speak about it because we're formally within that structure. And that structure, the rhetoric of the structure is he's learning and she's working. And I think that's still formally in the Israeli space, that's still formally the structure. But there's a much greater, I wouldn't say strong expectation, but at the very least probability that he's going to go to work. And we know many couples like that they got married within the kind of formal structure of he's learning and she's going to provide. And after 2-3 years, whatever it is, she says, well, this is crazy. This is not what we're going to be doing. And then he ends up saying, okay, so it's up to me to take responsibility. And that happens. And I think that's that's definitely a shift.
I mean, I think most people, at least I know from friend stories, they might not be midgam meyateg. How do you say midgam meyateg?
They might not be representative. They might not represent.
Yeah, but when they speak about responsibilities, it's very obvious that if the need comes up, then the guy does have the responsibility to go out to work and to provide. If the need comes up, if she's doing fine on her own, everything is good, then he can stay learning. But I think it's always on the table.
Right, but I think the criteria for what do you call a need has really changed, because it used to be if my wife is having a nervous breakdown and she's really the house is not functional and we're really drowning, then I'll consider getting some Torah occupation of being a Maggid Shir in the yeshiva and whatever it is. And today I think that's shifted a lot. You don't have to go to that extreme, and there's a much greater readiness to do all kinds of jobs and to go to study and to do computers and to join one of these programs where you get training as a Charedi man, meaning that's changed also. But I think probably the main change, as I said before, is just in the mindset, meaning that it's less about the formal framework and it's more about us. I don't know, what do you think about that?
I think the same way. I spoke to a few people before about this topic, and they said the same thing. It's what I have in mind is me, and well, I don't really know if I was
meaning less the community, less the community,
less the family. It's not, you're not trying to find someone that suits your parents. I think today, less than before. Today it's more about how do I feel about this? Do I want this? Is it good for me? And less about what's right.
What about the emotional connection?
It's a big deal today. Yeah. Like even, I remember Charedi teachers told me and like the lessons they gave that you have to feel something. If you're not excited by him, then it's not a good sign.
It has to be like a spark.
Yeah, like something to begin with. It's hard to say that, after 4 dates, you are fully emotionally connected, but there has to be like something in there that,
Are people still doing the 4 dates thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not super common, but yeah. I know people who did 4 dates. It's not weird.
Right, but it's legitimate to do 8.
Yeah, it's legitimate to do. Some people don't count, which is also...
You lose count.
Yeah. It's less rigid. Well, in my circles, though. I guess some places it is still rigid. I wanted to ask you about this shift. It's kind of getting to a place of more autonomy and more even liberal, in a sense, of what's right for me and how do I feel about this and do I want this? Is it good for me?
Like you described before.
And I think in the extreme of that, it's a very bad thing, because in the end of, we're part of a family and a community and a nation, and we don't want just what's good for us, but also what's good for the things that we're part of. So what do you think is like the balance between them?
Right, the liberalization of the Charedi shidduch.
Yeah.
So,
like, I'm in favor of getting married to someone that you love, or at least you know that you can love. But where do you think the line is, and what do you think can happen from here?
So I think that we have to be realistic. We have to be in touch with reality. I think that there's a legitimate spectrum, and along that legitimate spectrum, the shift is something that we should embrace. We shouldn't be fighting against the shift, provided that it's somewhere along the legitimate spectrum. Now, what do I mean? In the Hasidic world, not all of the Hasidic world, it's hard to not generalize. Okay, so let's generalize for the sake of convenience. In the Hasidic world, there's much less dating going on. On the more extreme end, you have a meeting for half an hour.
It's not so extreme, by the way.
It's done by parents. It's not that common, but it's not that uncommon either, right? In certain Chassiduyot. So you have the parents really doing the deal between them, and then the boy and girl meet for a short time to make sure there's nothing which is really off-putting, something that really disturbs them, something that puts them off. And then there's a yes, and you go forwards with that. So that's the extreme end of the Charedi spectrum, meaning it's all about the family and the community. It's a community shidduch. And sometimes it's cross communities in Hasidic groups that have an affinity with each other, that they're connected to each other. And that way you also have these cross community connections that are created through shidduchim, whether it's through the Rebbe and the Rebbe's children and grandchildren, or through Hasidim. And that's just the way it used to be. The King of England would make some kind of a shidduch, a marriage with the King of Spain. Their children or grandchildren would get married, and that's how you did geopolitics. And also here, it's how you do the inter-community politics by means of shidduchim. So that's on one end of the Charedi spectrum. And on the other end of the Charedi spectrum, you have boys and girls who date each other for significant time, and it's not your half an hour meeting in a living room. It's really going out, and people can go out for a month. In America, you have more of a spectrum on this between modern Orthodoxy and the yeshivish. You can go out for a month, you can go out for 2 months. I don't know, I'm not intimately familiar with what's going on in America on this.
2 months is not even the big deal. You can go out for like half a year.
Half a year?
Yeah.
Maybe. We should fill in some homework on what's going on in America in this sense. I'm sure in the yeshivish world, half a year is extreme. I don't think that would happen, but maybe it could. There's a spectrum between modern Orthodoxy towards yeshivish, but even in Israel, right? It would be legitimate to go out for a while, and people look for the emotional connection. People look for a sense of meaning. People look for a sense of love on some level, and that's on the other extreme of the Charedi end. But both of those are legitimate in the sense that you're not picking up a boy in the bar, or the other way, you're not being picked up by a boy in the bar. It's still within the family structure. The families are involved. The community is involved. It's not a total endorsement of the westernized individualism where it's just falling in love and everything else just becomes almost irrelevant, or actually irrelevant. It's not on the Tuvi the Milkman's spectrum, on Fiddler on the Roof spectrum. We're not abandoning the structure. The structure is there. There is a shidduch structure. The parents are involved.
So Fiddler on the Roof is a nice example, because I remember I spoke to my friend about it, and she said the message of the movie is that if you shift a bit from tradition and from your values, then eventually you're going to get to where his daughter came, that she married this non-Jew guy. That was the point that she took from this movie. And I'm trying to think like of the shift. Let's say it's been maybe 3 decades or 4 decades. But what I'm trying to think what could happen like in the future that would be, let's say, not good in this sense, too liberal. Because if you leave the Charedi space somewhat in the way it is now, it's never going to be like this, that a guy picks up a girl in a bar, because the guys and the girls are not hanging out together. And I don't think they will in the next few decades. It's a big thing.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a good point. The Fiddler on the Roof message, I think, is deeper than just if you give a bit, then everything will fall down.
Yeah, I think
like
it shows, like
in
in the contrary, the Fiddler on the Roof message shows how complicated things are, and you have to give a bit, like you have to give some, like I don't think if he wouldn't let anyone do anything, it would turn out better. They would just do things without permission. It's more complicated than it seems.
Yeah, Fiddler on the Roof on the one hand does does present the message of that complexity. I would say that Fiddler on the Roof is also, it's not an innocent movie, meaning Fiddler on the Roof also demonstrates how frail, how weak tradition or Judaism is in the face of the new reality of the modern space. And there's also a message there, I think, that the modern space is the good and the right. And that's where we want to go. And Tuvia doesn't have the courage, or doesn't have the ability perhaps. He's not ready to endorse the final step of his daughter's marriage to a non-Jewish guy. But poor guy Tuvia, he didn't make it. He's not liberal enough. He wasn't able to internalize those values enough to be able to accept that. If you know what I mean, there's kind of a negative message there vis-a-vis the Jewish tradition.
Yeah, I don't think
that's there
Jews
also.
Should really like this movie. It doesn't put Jews in such a good light.
Well, true, but perhaps there's also something realistic about how damaging or just how undermining the encounter with modernity was for the Jews of Europe. And in our case, I think that there's another interesting comparison that you could make, which is between the Charedi system and what's going on in religious Zionism or in the modern Orthodox world, where parents are almost uninvolved. Parents have don't have anything to do with it. It's all done with friends. There's still something there of the shidduch world, because you're not just picking up a girl, but it's done very much among companions, among friends.
They how do you say? They hitchhike, like they take tampim.
Yeah, hitchhike.
They get good shidduchim from
hitchhiking as shidduchim.
Yeah.
Right. So the car becomes your bar.
Still the car though. It's better than a bar.
Better than a bar. You're not drunk.
Yeah.
There are advantages to every situation, but for me that's a bit tough, right? You take parents out of it.
Yeah, I wanted to actually speak to you about this, about the parents' role in shidduchim. Like, I think parents should be involved, but sometimes parents cause like harm.
How's that?
Because they can be really annoying. And I can tell you that I have a friend that she actually married this guy. His mom came to their first date. She wanted to meet her. And she is, she's a character. And my friend almost said no because of it. She really did not like her. But she said, he looks fine. Like, he doesn't look annoying. Like, but his mother is a real, deal. So she was thinking, and I remember speaking to her about it, and she said, like, okay, I'm not going to say no because he really looks good and he suits me, and we'll figure this out. Eventually they got married, and she's actually a really nice woman. But
the mother. Yeah.
But the first impression was bad. And like, I would say just, you should leave them alone in some sense. Give them some space.
Well, the question is, do you want a responsible adult to be involved in the process? That's the question. And it's not just any responsible adult. It's parents who want the best for their children. Now, it's true, you'll always have the annoying parent, or whatever name you want to give this parent, or the undiscerning parent, or the stupid parent, or whatever. You'll have parents who are not the kind of responsible adults that you want in the room. But the question is, do you want to make the assumption that parental involvement is a good thing? Because parents know their kids, and they know their kids well. And
they know more about life than what the kid knows.
And they want the best for their children. And therefore, we want the parents to be involved on that level, to give the framework. When we were finding out for our sons, for our daughters partially, especially for the sons, when we were looking for shidduchim, then we actually didn't do investigations in the traditional means by calling friends and calling family members, this and that. What did we do? We sat down with the other family. We actually sat down with the parents. Some parents said, oh, we don't want to do that. That's not conventional. So we said, okay, good luck. that's what we want to do, because that's our way of finding out. If you're not even ready to sit down with us, then we have a problem. But most parents were very happy to sit down. And for us, that was just the ideal way of quote unquote finding out. It wasn't a conventional finding out, but it was speaking with the parents of the other side, the other prospective shidduch, and assuming we're both sincere and we're both honest and we both want the best for our children. We're not going to lie. We're not going to be dishonest in any way. And we also get to see the dynamic of the couple. We also get to see what they emphasize about the children, how they think, what they want, what do they stress. It was such a wonderful way of finding out. Finding out is the wrong expression. It was a wonderful way of thinking about, is this a good idea together with the other side?
It's not just a good idea. It's just, I like the idea of it, of the kids are not just there on their own and don't belong to anything, are not part of anything, but they're part of something.
Right. And then your choice, it's still a choice, meaning it's true. On the extreme Hasidic side, it's minimal choice. On the more liberal Charedi, Litvish, Yeshivish, whatever you call it, side, then there's more choice for the kids themselves. But that choice is an informed choice. It's not a choice out of everyone. Who knows who your partner may be? No, your parents are going to give you some structure into which you can fit. And like I said, there's a spectrum there. I think it's very healthy. And then you're getting married within the parental structure, within the community structure. It doesn't mean you don't have choice. You don't have autonomy. You can say yes, you can say no. You can go out for 4 dates or 8 dates or 12 dates. It's not like you're limited, constrained. Again, within that spectrum of what's considered legitimate within the community norms, which do change. But that change is a legitimate change, provided that you maintain that balance. And again, you could shift systems. You could say, I prefer the modern Orthodox or the Tilumi system because I don't want my parent involved. By the way, that could be a function of age also.
Yeah.
When you're young, you're 20, 22, 23, when people are very young, then it's natural that the parent should have a greater involvement. When we're speaking about older singles, so sometimes in the community where I'm the rabbi of a community that has singles, and those singles, once they hit 30, 35, then naturally parents will be less involved because I'm my own person. I'm doing my own thing. I'm not mommy's boy anymore. You know what I mean? I'm in a different space. And then, of course, it becomes much more legitimate and almost expected. I find it strange when I get phone calls from parents of 35-year-olds who want to investigate about some boy or some girl. I found that strange. The girl should call me herself. She's 35.
Yeah, it's a problem. It feels like a problem.
So, yes, but at a young age, when you're part of the home, you're getting married out of the home, it makes a lot of sense. I think it gives you a certain anchor, certain stability, certain grounding in the community. And then, yes, there is a certain liberalization, but it's within boundaries. And I think it's legitimate.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing in general. And I don't think that it can go really bad. Like some elements of things that are becoming more liberal, I think it can cause actual damage and are really not good, and they can be taken too far. But I think in this specific topic, I don't see anything so bad that can happen from it.
Well, we're still calling it a shidduch.
Yeah.
If we're giving it the title of a shidduch, that's already something that we're familiar with. We know what a shidduch means. Once you leave that behind and you say, we don't do shidduchim. And by the way, there's so many who are critical of the shidduch model, meaning again, for argument's sake or for label's sake, let's call it the liberals of the world, who are very critical of the shidduch model. Doesn't make sense. How are you going to get married to someone if you've only met him 5 times or 10 times? It's not legitimate. You have to actually...
I have a friend that he's secular, and he thinks that the fact that we didn't live together before we got engaged is nuts. And he just can't... He
can't wrap his head around
this. It's too much.
How is it possible?
And he's very conservative.
To marry somebody without living together before, and this is from the conservatives.
Statistically, he is wrong because the divorce rates are not Actually, the opposite. If you live together, then divorce rates are higher. But I wanted to ask you something else.
Well, let me just mention that, because I mean, obviously from our perspective, that's the good part about the shidduch model. The shidduch model is about that there's a structure to it, that you save that intimacy, that living together, you save that for the sanctity of marriage. And that means that marriage is an institution. If you live together before, then what's marriage? Marriage loses its magic. It loses its institutional level of commitment, because we were doing this before anyway. It loses its whole beauty.
Just a piece of paper.
And elevation and holiness. Right. It means like we formalized it, but it's the same as we were doing before. And again, I'm not saying you need to be in the shidduch system to refrain from living together before. But once you're out of the shidduch system and you say it's all about me, it's all about our feelings, it's all about getting to know each other. So yeah, living together is almost the natural progression. And that's what's happened, right? From Jane Austen till today, that's the progression. It started with undermining the community, the hierarchy, if you want. And we don't like to talk about hierarchies.
I don't mind hierarchies.
I know, but it's not so, let's say, vogue. It's not so in fashion to speak about hierarchies. That's the Jane Austen stuff. But once you get rid of those, then you get rid of the whole community belonging thing and the family belonging thing, and then it becomes individualized. And after that, so in the beginning, you had to still get permission from the father. And then that kind of went out the window too.
Some people do.
Some people still do it today. I was privileged to have that in your case, and I was very, very gratified for that. I thought it was very special.
I was very happy about it too.
I think it's very special. But again, that represents a system. Once you cancel the system, then living together becomes almost inevitable, unfortunately. And I think that's very damaging, like you said before. But anyway, sorry, you wanted to ask something else.
I just wanted to, we did an episode about gender roles, and I wanted to ask you, you said how parents were involved in the kids' shiluchim, dating, stuff like that. Do you think there's a difference between a boy and a girl, like a guy and a woman, as a parent, the way you are involved in it? Because I would think that guys do need more autonomy to get married because they are taking the responsibilities. So it is, in some point, their decision. They have to be more independent to do that.
Well, to be the suitors, to be the, in Hebrew it's called the lechazel. They're courting the girls. They're the suitors.
Well, they should be.
Right. So in the shidduch system, you do have a little bit less of that courtship, of being the suitor, being the guy that's chasing after a girl. Because instead of chasing, you just get introduced in some hotel room or wherever it is that you go out on the first date based on this initial parental involvement. So you have a bit less of that. But certainly it's not the same. Boys and girls, it's not the same. One of the main differences, again, from a parent's side, is that girls get married from home. Girls are part of the home. And therefore the parental involvement is much closer. The dating is happening from home. As it were, the dates take place between the home and the hotel or the park or wherever you're going. While for boys, they're in yeshiva. It's more distant. Who they're going to be speaking to is their choice. They might speak to parents. They might speak to others. But it's not taking place at home. And that makes a difference.
Do you think it's a good thing that it's supposed to be that way?
Yeah, I think it makes sense that boys are already gaining their sense of independence. They're gaining a sense of responsibility. Now, to what degree are the yeshivas a place that trains you, a place that's conducive for taking responsibility? That's arguable. I think, unfortunately, some yeshivas, or most yeshivas, don't train boys for taking responsibility. On the contrary, everything is done for them, and the yeshiva caters for their every need. All they need to do is to sit and learn in the base medrash. There's no strong challenge or sense of need of taking responsibility. But I think in theory that makes a lot of sense. I do think that there's a shift, again, like we spoke at the beginning, this 30-year shift, which is continuing to unfold and to take place, where boys today are much more ready. I think some of them are even eager to be responsible. I think it's difficult to tell a boy.
They don't want to be in yeshiva for 10 years straight.
They don't want to be dependent on their wives. They feel that place of dependency is a place that can choke them, is a place that can keep them small and underdeveloped.
It is the common model, though.
I would say it's the default. In the Israeli Charedi space, it's still the default, but I think it's a shifting default. And today you find even, today, I had a conversation today with a guy who's single. He's 20, I think he's 25. And he was talking to me about his shidduchim. Literally this morning, I had a conversation about this. And he's left yeshiva. He's left yeshiva to be engaged in the working world in different areas. He's now working to establish some kind of yeshiva framework, a yeshiva Hesder framework, Charedi Hesder, and he's involved in some other stuff too in the workforce. I don't remember himself what he's done with army service. He's probably done army service, but I don't remember. In any case, he told me that, and I asked him, were you not worried about your shidduch prospects in leaving the yeshiva and beginning to do all of these engagement activities outside the yeshiva space? And he said, of course, I was, but I can tell you that it hasn't negatively affected my shidduchim at all. And in fact, possibly even the contrary.
Really?
Being in this place where I'm taking responsibility for myself has actually enhanced, in a certain way at least, my shidduch suggestions, the prospect, and certainly hasn't damaged them, which I found very interesting. Now, again, it's anecdotal.
I think in a way it puts him in a place that he's more ready for that, because I think that in a natural way, a guy wants to get married when he's capable of taking the responsibility. Even if the wife works, it doesn't mean she doesn't work, but it means that if she doesn't want to work or you have kids and she wants to be home, you are capable of taking the responsibility. And I believe there is something in that. And I don't think that's a woman's responsibility. Like, she has other things
to be the breadwinner.
No.
Yeah, and you can also think more freely about how you want your home to look.
Yeah.
Meaning, do you want a woman to be the home? Again, she might work more, she might work less, whatever. But you can imagine that. You can imagine a home which has a mother as the anchor, rather than the father being home so much, which is often the case when the woman is the main breadwinner, and then he has to be at home so much. And sometimes young fathers go crazy, and understandably so, because they feel that they're not able to fulfill themselves. Also,
I have many friends that have now their first babies. They have maybe 2 little babies, maybe 1. And it's so hard for them to go back to work after maternity leave. Like, they stay home for like 3 months or 4 or 5 or 6. I think 6 is the maximum.
That's the maximum right now, yes.
And it's so hard for them to go back. And some of them want to go back, like after a while they're happy about it, but some of them really don't. But they kind of feel like they don't have any other choice.
Right.
But it is interesting to see how it reflects on dates, like the differences in gender roles. So what do you think about splitting the check?
Who's paying for the drinks?
Yeah. Because it is a thing.
What do you think about that?
But I think the guy obviously has to pay for everything. But it's different when it's his parents' money, though.
That's an interesting point. Does it make a difference that it's your parents' money? Meaning...
It did for me. Knowing the parents pay for it made me feel kind of bad.
that you were using your parents' money.
That the guy I was dating
That the guy was using his parents' money.
money.
That's an interesting question. Is it legitimate to be chivalrous, right? Chivalry, but at the expense of your parents? I think yes. I think that's legitimate. Meaning, it's my parents' decision to put me in a school and in a yeshiva system where I don't have my own money. My parents put me there.
Yeah.
And therefore, my parents made a commitment to underwrite my chivalry. I need to be able to date. And if in my conception of dating, I need to be chivalrous, I need to pay for the drinks. That's like modern day chivalry. It's not quite the knight in shining armor. But let's assume that's the modern day way.
It isn't dating, like that's what there is.
That's what we have. Correct. I'm not saving a damsel in distress. I'm going out to a hotel and paying for a drink. But at the very least, the paying for a drink, I think you're right. It makes a lot of sense that the guy should do it because he is still the suitor. Let him be a suitor. Let him have this one small corner of chivalry in his life where he's paying for the drinks. And how much money is this? It's going to cost 50 shekel more, 100 shekel. What's he going to be paying? His parents are paying enough for everything else around that he also should be paying. Why isn't he paying for his yeshiva? He's 22 years old. The answer is because his parents didn't place him in a system where he would be able to be self-reliant and be able to take that responsibility. So same thing with his dates. He's got to pay for the drinks.
Dates, though, is different. I'd say for me, like from the girl's perspective, for me, it would be a big difference if he would pay for it himself or his parents would pay for it.
Wow.
Even because of the idea that he can pay for things and be responsible versus his parents are responsible and can pay for things.
Right, I do understand that, but even on a structural level of how a date should look, I think there's something to it that he takes that responsibility of paying for the drinks.
No, definitely.
Even if he's using his parents' money. Yeah. And it makes a difference for the girl. She's being treated, right? She's being taken out. How do you call a date? Is it we're going out or is it I'm taking you out?
Well, almost everyone says going out and I don't like it. It should be taking you out, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, like you said, is not
but
taken for granted.
People don't say that anymore.
You know what? At the very least, it shouldn't be that the girl's taking him out. That could happen in a Charedi kind of framing where she's the one that's expected to be the breadwinner. So she's going to be taking him out. But that's the distortion. That's the problem.
That's a big problem.
We're losing this natural
I could offer, like if I would go out with someone for a bunch of dates, I could offer to kind of not pay for the whole thing, but like to split one of the dates. Yeah.
I think you were happy that you were taken out, Shira.
Yeah, but they said yes though.
What, when you offered?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't expect them to say no.
This is not the guy you decided to get married to.
He would not put up with it.
Good, I'm happy to hear that.
But that was a big deal for me though. And I think it's supposed to be a big deal for any woman.
Yeah, but it's a social construct and that can be chopped and changed a little bit. But I think that ultimately it goes back to something natural. It goes something which is built into human nature. And I think that also our dating is going back towards that a little bit. It takes time, but we'll go back towards that space, I think.
What do you think about asking rabbis who to marry?
I think generally that the rabbi should not be the guy that decides who you marry. However, like everything, and I think I've said this before on this podcast, certainly elsewhere, that I'm for consulting with wise people. Sometimes the rabbi can be a wise person. Sometimes there are non-rabbinic wise people. It's worth consulting. It's worth taking opinions and consultation and advice from people who have experience and people that have good discretion, but they help you to make the decision. Of course, it has to be your decision. Parents, if they've done their part, they've put the two of you together, you should consult with your parents too. But it has to be your decision in the end. You want to own that decision of who you want to get married to.
Yeah,
the rabbi is not going to own it. You don't want to have the right? There's always the question of the authority and the accountability. He's not going to be living with your husband. You will. And he's not going to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And therefore, you don't want to divide between the authority and the responsibility or the accountability. You want to put them together, and therefore...
Yeah, you're going to face the consequences of this choice, so...
Yes.
I
so
mean,
you should own it.
Truth is, though, you also choose who to ask.
Who to ask is good.
Or if to ask.
But not to outsource your decision, not to outsource your own responsibility. I think that still stands with you. And ultimately, let's say things go sour, it's not going to help. You'll blame the rabbi. It's not going to help.
No.
You want to own your decisions, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think also if you don't own your decision, then things might go sour quicker. Because if you're not responsible for it, then you're not going to find any reason to work on it to change it because it's not your responsibility. It's just, this is the way it is and it's not my fault.
Yeah, that's a good point also. I like that. Meaning if you own your decision, then you're going to feel responsible to make it work.
Yeah.
While if it's somebody else that made the decision, you'll be much quicker just to blame them and said, this was a bad idea from the first place and I wasn't involved.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. There's one more thing that I was thinking about before I came here today. I was thinking about what is someone actually asked me this. What is like for me when I went out on dates, what's the mindset supposed to be? Because I believe there is a big difference between guys and women on dating. So I'm wondering what you think about it. I was thinking that a girl, a woman, how do you say like a bkhwa?
A girl.
A girl? Fine. When a girl...
You can say a young woman, whatever you're comfortable with.
Long. When a girl goes out, I would say the main issue for me, not that I was always like that, but...
Shira, get to the point.
Try to be in the place of being able to be chosen. Like to be able to make space for someone that would be able to choose me and to want me. What do you think is the guy's thing when he goes out on dates?
First of all, I think that's an interesting perspective from the woman's point of view.
Yeah.
Do you think your friends would frame it in the same way?
No. It depends who, but I do think it's true.
Meaning you're coming into the date with a mindset of, am I going to be chosen?
Well, it's not so easy to kind of let someone in the picture, being
to allow him
opinionated, independent, because most girls are. They already work. They have opinions on many things. They read a lot of books. And I think it's a big issue that, but at least for me, it was a big deal just to be in the state of being able to
make space for him.
Yeah.
To make space for somebody that's going to choose you and going to kind of take care of you.
Yeah.
It's good. First of all, good for you. I don't think that's very representative, but I think it's nice that you were able to reach that place. From a guy's perspective and also from a girl's perspective, ultimately you're thinking about who's going to be your soulmate, who is the person that's going to be in the biblical language, your Ezer Kenegdoi. Your Ezer Kenegdoi means that it's not the same as you. It's someone that's coming opposite you. Kenegdoi. You look at someone that's facing you. So your right is his left and your left is his right. It's opposite from you. And being able to date, being able to be ready for bringing somebody into your life who is Kenegdoi, right? Who's coming from this opposite perspective is a maturity and it's a readiness. And then you think, is this the person with whom I can imagine, I can see myself living out the rest of my life as somebody that I'll be able to love, but also as somebody that I'll be able to grow together with, that I'll be able to live a fulfilled life together with, that he or she will complement me in ways that I would never be able to reach when I'm on my own. And so a guy is looking for the things that he needs, the things that he's missing, okay? And often that could be an emotional maturity. It could be a softness, a feminine touch. It could be somebody that's willing to bring out all of the greatness that a home can be when you have the partner with which to do that. And the same thing for a girl, just from the opposite way. And of course, as do you know somebody called Miriam Kosman?
Yes.
Miriam Kosman, she writes about masculinity and femininity. And she makes the point, which I think is true, that there are archetypes, meaning there are typecasts of femininity and masculinity. It doesn't mean that every girl is going to be very feminine and every guy is going to be very masculine. So the things that we say as generalizations won't apply to each and every girl, excuse me, and to each and every guy. Of course, there'll be people who will look for different things based on who they are. But so generally speaking, the girl will be looking for somebody that will take care of her, that will look after her, that will be able to shower her with his love and with his care and with his compassion and so on. And also somebody that she'll be able to look up to and somebody and so on. But not always, like I said. And the guy will be looking from the other perspective, just the same, just from the other side. But certainly it's a very magical moment, meaning to be able to reach that confidence and to say, this is the man or this is the woman with whom I want to commit to living out the rest of my life. It's a crazy moment. It's a crazy magical moment, and I'm very happy for you that you've reached that moment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a journey.
It was a journey. It was quite kind of a long journey.
Yeah, it was good though.
And sometimes when you look back, you say, wow, I had to make that journey to reach the place that I ultimately got to.
Yes. Okay.
And we'll leave it there.
And yeah, I think we should close this topic here. That was very interesting, Abba. Thank you.
Thank you, Shira.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for watching and listening, and see you next time.